Welcome to the Lady Landlords podcast, where we empower women to gain financial independence through real estate investing. I'm your host, Becky Nova, founder of Lady Landlords. If you're ready to buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio, then let's get started. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. Today, we are interviewing Holly, who is one of our member spotlights, and she's going to be sharing her story and her journey through real estate investing. So, Holly, thanks for joining me today. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. Thank you.
Good. I always like to just start with just a simple introduction of who you, Holly, are outside of real estate investing. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, I'm originally from New Jersey, but now I live in Charleston, South Carolina area. I have 2 kids. I enjoy salsa dancing. I have a couple degrees in engineering, and I work as an IT professional doing requirements and project management type stuff.
Great. What got you down to South Carolina from New Jersey?
Well, I left New Jersey for college and didn't really go back full time. I wound up getting a job then in DC, which I did not enjoy living there. And so I just really wanted to leave there. So we did an East Coast tour, driving up and down the coast, and tried to pick a city that we thought we would, enjoy living in, would be a good place for families, and that had jobs that we could do.
In South Carolina, it was.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's funny. I lived in Washington, D.C. myself, actually. So
Mhm.
I know the area you're talking about, but I think that's such a cool idea that you just drove around kind of deciding what would really be like a good fit for you. So interesting.
It was an excuse to take a 2-week road trip also.
Exactly. It had a purpose. If only then, were you at the time, were you involved in real estate investing or no?
Not conscious investing.
Okay.
I had purchased a 1-bedroom, condo unit for myself after I was in DC for about a year. And then after I got engaged and was getting married, we bought a 2-bedroom, which we wound up holding on to and becoming kind of accidental landlords in that way. But like I said, it wasn't exactly intentional at that point.
God, no, the reason I was actually asking was that I was going to say that's a great business expense as well, having to
Yeah.
go do market research in different neighborhoods up and down the East Coast.
Well,
So
see, I didn't know that. Actually, maybe we could have done that because when we bought our house here, we didn't have our jobs yet. So we rented it out for a year before we moved down. But yeah, I wish I knew that in 2009.
Well, I guess better late than never, right? But yeah, that would have been just a nice little addition there for sure. But so what kind of led you to real estate investing? So you're basically saying that you fell into that category of the accidental landlord?
I did, and didn't do anything about it for a while. We bought kind of at the top of the market, which was, we made all the wrong moves basically. And when I rented out the 1-bedroom, we still lived in the area, and I had the same tenant for 4 years. He was very low maintenance. So we kind of just thought it was easy and held on to it. And then when we wound up moving here, we started having like more turnover and a lot more plumbing issues and things we had to manage from afar now with a baby. So it was a little bit crazy. So no, I didn't, based on that experience, jump into it. It was more that I've always been someone who has multiple jobs and side gigs. Like I always tutored or bartended or did something on the side. Taught gymnastics. Because my day job, I guess, I wasn't super passionate about that. So I always just did something for fun that also made money. So I was listening to podcasts about that actually, and somehow learned about passive income from real estate, and then started looking at more, podcasts focusing on that because I realized, why am I not making passive income on my real estate?
Right.
Yeah, so listening to people like Paula Pant was really helpful in how she runs the numbers, and I'm a numbers person, so it started to click and make sense for me.
Got it. So you had that first property that really it was what you bought for you to live in. And
Right.
then your fiance also had a 2-bedroom in the DC area?
Well, we bought that together.
Oh,
He
you bought
moved
that
into my
together.
1-bedroom and complained that his stuff was in storage and we needed a bigger place, so
Gotcha. So then you ended
Yeah,
up buying a two-bedroom in
right,
the DC area as well before moving to
right.
South Carolina. Okay. Do you still own those properties now?
I just sold, well, we sold the two-bedroom a couple years ago. That was one that was definitely not covering expenses with the rent. But at the time, the
Okay.
market was so far down, we would have lost a ton of money. We still lost a ton of money on that one.
Okay.
Um, and I just sold the one bedroom a couple days ago. Actually, I just signed the
Oh, wow.
papers and we closed. And that
Congratulations.
I'm going to turn into something better because I'm tired of dealing with plumbing issues.
Okay. So let's talk, just start with those properties first. So with those condos, um, what was it like? I'm assuming since it was the DC area, you probably had like an HOA, correct?
So much HOA.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to ask about. So what was it like renting out a condo when there was an owners association involved?
Um, well, in the one building, they actually have a management office that the condo fee helps pay for. So it's kind of like having a
Mhm.
property manager. They don't
Okay.
handle turnovers, but maintenance requests, and they have a list of contractors that you can work through them. So that was
Mhm.
somewhat helpful. The second condo, we went through all of the trials, such as the board not wanting a certain percentage of renters, so you had to get it rented out fast, so you were grandfathered in. We also had an assessment in that situation. I will never buy a condo again.
Okay, that's what I was curious, because I was going to say, definitely here in New York, it's more difficult to buy the condo and rent it out here in New York. One, same thing, board approvals are very difficult, but usually HOA fees, especially in New York, are incredibly expensive, very similar to DC. So that tends to be something that makes numbers not work
Yep.
for have using condos as rental. But it is nice to have an HOA if they are taking care of those maintenance requests, right? It is kind of that slightly built-in property manager. But you're saying no way, never again, not the direction you would
No.
go.
Because you don't have
Gotcha.
very much control. Um,
Hmm.
I would say if you do have to buy a condo, look for one on the highest floor you can. Um, and look at the building records, look at what you're actually getting for that fee and what the rental, is the rental rates going to cover it? How often do they raise the fees? What's
Hmm.
included in that? Like one of mine included all of the utilities, which is nice if you live there. But when a tenant is looking at rent prices, if you price that into the rent, they're just seeing that it's high rent. So it makes you less attractive to other buildings where the rent, they might be getting a nicer building for that rent, but then they have to pay utilities on top of that. And I think that just doesn't occur to a lot of people when they're looking at numbers as renters.
Right. And that is tricky. It's kind of that different perception of what they see for kind of that rent versus value. And it's just the perception of it together. So interesting. And what made you decide to sell it? Was it the plumbing issues? Was it kind of where the market stands today? What was the impetus?
The two bedroom, we were losing money every month on that because we couldn't
Mhm.
pay, like I said, the condo fee. It covered the mortgage, but not the condo fee.
Okay.
So we just wanted to get rid of it. Tired of dealing with it. Had two small kids,
Right.
that kind of thing. We did have to not evict one tenant, but kind of happy clause them out,
Oh, wow.
which was stressful. Yes. So I was just like, good riddance to that one. The second one I had actually paid off. So
Yeah.
it was cash flowing pretty well. It's super easy to rent because it's in a great location. But not only the plumbing issues that were recurring because it's on a lower floor, economics may not trickle down, but water sure does. And I can't even tell you how many times I've repaired that ceiling when it was really some other condo's fault. And if the building can't pinpoint where it came from, you got to fix it. Um,
So
but
that's
I
why you
do want
said
to
make sure to buy on the highest
on the
floor.
higher floor,
And you
exactly.
don't
And in
have
my
that
second
water.
building, they had a sewage backup, and some of the lower floors had an issue with that. So I would never want to deal with that. Thankfully, we were on the eighth floor of that building. But in
Gotcha.
some areas, obviously, you don't have a choice because
Right.
buying a house or renting a house like that is just not feasible for a lot of people.
Right. In
So,
DC, and more of our urban cities, that's what's very typical. There are apartment buildings, right? No one goes to Manhattan looking to buy a single family home,
No,
right?
exactly.
You're gonna be buying a something in an apartment type complex. So no, it
Yes.
definitely is a very location dependent thing. So when you moved down to South Carolina, what was the transition like to then be buying down there?
I mean, this is more similar to where I grew up, which was kind of suburbia,
Hmm.
and it was a lot more affordable. Now the prices have gone up, everywhere, but here especially, we've lived here 12 years, and it has just gone to the moon. So we lost a lot of money in DC, but made it up on our property here. And it's projected to continue growing for the
Hmm.
next 10 to 20 years. They keep moving, manufacturing and jobs. And of course, now I'm paying attention to those things. I wish I had bought 10 more properties 10 years ago down here. But we have other, risks like hurricanes. So I'm
Yes.
familiar with living here and I know how to handle that kind of stuff. But if you were a long distance landlord, that might be a little bit difficult.
Of course. So when you bought down there, did you end up buying single families?
Yes.
And then was that more of an intentional, let's do real estate investing and make money in this
Yes.
business?
So
Gotcha.
my real estate agent that I worked with to buy my own house also had a couple rentals. And so after I was, learning about it and running spreadsheets and listening to podcasts, I reached out to her, of course, and she set me up with the email thing. But she also knows what neighborhoods are good to find renters for, things about the schools. She really helped me figure out and pinpoint my search and my target price and stuff like that. So, I ran a ton of numbers and I was just doing what all the podcasters recommend, which is you just look on, Zillow or Redfin, find a house, run the numbers and see how it works out and see what is doable for you. And if the tenant's not
Mhm.
going to pay, can you make that payment? That kind of thing. So of course I'm doing all this and decide to go for it right as COVID hits,
Of
which turned
course.
out being great. Actually, at the beginning, you really couldn't see properties. People didn't want, people in their house to view it.
Hmm.
Um, of course, we had to wear masks in the houses we did go in, but a lot of, especially tenants, didn't want you to view the house. And I was not, as my first investment property, going to buy a house without going inside. So I did have an offer on the first one we bought, and we went through all the inspections and everything and found out that it had termites active.
Oh my God. Okay.
Right. And the seller wouldn't let us open the wall to see how bad it was. So I walked away from that first deal because, like I said, as my first deal, I wanted to know what I was getting into and just be safe.
Hmm.
Um, it probably would have been okay. Someone bought it right after me and renovated a little bit. It was in good condition, the rest of the house. But like I
Where the
said,
termites weren't. So
I think the
yeah.
person who bought it was a flipper or some construction person who could do the work themselves,
And they thought
probably.
that may be a little bit more comfortable handling some of those situations that
Yeah.
were new to you.
Or just more experienced maybe
Right.
in this area with termites. When I heard active termites, I was like, "Stop the presses, we are done."
Right. And that was a deal breaker for you, right? As real
Right,
estate investors, we all kind of have to have our own gauge for what we're comfortable doing and what we're not comfortable doing. And what you're okay with is going to be different than what I'm okay with. So I'm happy to hear that you knew where your boundaries were and didn't get yourself into something that could have been a disaster. That made you
right.
really unhappy.
And I was lucky that the agent has become a personal friend of mine over the years. So she's, was honest and helpful and just wanted to tell me, not advise me per se exactly what I should do, but she also owns units and is like, okay, this is how I would handle it. Or I would walk away from this deal or I wouldn't,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So we bounced a lot of ideas off each other, which really helped.
Good. So, okay, so that first property did not work out. So where did you go after saying no to the termite property?
Well, another thing that came out of that was helpful is I narrowed down my criteria. 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1 story, straight roof line on a slab, because I
Mhm.
visited a lot of houses with a crawl space that were built in the 60s around here, and those floors, they're like this because of all the water. Um, and I didn't want to deal with structural issues like that. So we narrowed it down to slab. And we actually found a house shortly after that that fit my criteria, and we were able to
Mhm.
negotiate the price down a little bit because It was mid-COVID, like I said, at the time when before things started picking up again. So
Mhm.
these people, I think they either had already put an offer on a new house or somehow were in the works and needed to sell their house. So they were willing to negotiate a little bit. So I was happy with that.
Great. That worked out really well. There was this little time frame, I feel like, in 2020 where people were still not sure what was going on. World was still very confusing before real estate just absolutely boomed and took off.
Yes.
And if you happen to buy in that little space, that little area of confusion versus real estate boom, honestly, things could have been very lucrative. I was in a similar boat where I bought what I call my COVID baby, the house that I picked up during that time, and it was exactly that. It was something where the sellers didn't think anybody would buy it because of COVID, but yet then all it was right before prices just started to really shoot up. So it was a great
Hmm.
opportunity to pick up a great deal. So I'm glad you were able to capitalize on that. So was that property, was that turnkey? Did it have renters? Did you have to rehab it? What did it look like when you bought
Um, it definitely smelled like someone was smoking some things that are not legal and had carpeting that had some holes in it.
it? Hmm.
So initially we were going to just do the floor in the master. We wound up instead doing the floor in all the bedrooms, just put in the LVP.
Mhm.
We painted some rooms, but not all. And I had to put a roof on that house. So that took up a lot of my rehab budget, and that was the most important thing. But, you know, going through all the lists and the inspections, I set out a timeline of when I want to replace other things. The HVAC is old. I'm surprised it hasn't died on me yet, honestly.
Fingers
And
crossed. Come on.
fingers crossed. Well, I do want to replace it. I was going to replace it this fall because now, the tenant's been paying. I've been saving capital expenditure money,
Right.
but they're going to do this big HVAC turnover in January to the new technology or new refrigerant. So I think
Okay.
I'm going to have to wait till then. So hope it's
Gotcha.
still kicking by that time.
Exactly. Make it through the next couple months. All right.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it through the next couple months, and then my tenants, it might line up with when they leave, so that might work.
So when you
But
set out
now I
kind of
can
that
plan.
timeline, when you had
Yeah.
that timeline when you bought this, did you associate like prices with it? Saying like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
I know I'm gonna have to do a roof. I'll do that in 2 months. That's gonna cost me that 10 grand. And how did you come up with what those prices would be like?
During the due diligence period, I got quotes on everything. I knew the roof had to be done immediately.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought that was highest priority because now that I know about leaks and it's like I'm doing that. And I got a couple HVAC estimates as well, some way ridiculous. So I'm glad I
Mhm.
got a couple. Um, yeah, so I just kept that in my back pocket. And the water heater, actually, I got estimates on that, knew that was super old. So as soon as the tenant reported crazy things going on with the water heater, I was there. I called the plumber. We replaced it right away, and I had the money to do it.
Now, how did you find a lot of these service people? How did you find the roofer, the plumber, those types of people in your area?
Well, first of all, I live here, so I know of some companies and I've worked with some companies and people. Also, my real estate agent friend, she hooked
Mhm.
me up with the roof people that she uses on
Good.
her rentals. Um, yeah, and networking through, neighborhood group type things, Facebook recommendations. But a lot of times I find that, especially people in my town, I don't know, they're not necessarily comparing cost. They're just like, "Oh, this company did a great job for me." And then I get a quote from them, like, maybe they did a great job, but they cost twice as much as this other company that's the next town over.
Right.
So,
And they better have done a good job for
I
twice as
know.
right, for that very increased fee. So, okay, but I think there's also the difference between what a homeowner that is living in their forever home looks for in kind of quality and service compared to what we as investors look
Well, and
for.
how much they know about the systems in their house.
Correct. And what we're exactly what we're also looking for. There is kind of that question of we want to make sure that things are durable, we want to make sure that we have good quality, but we also might shop around a little bit more for prices rather than somebody that is their forever home. Plus, also, you always have to remember too that what is affordable is completely different. So I see all the time people asking questions, kind of saying, like, hey, I need an affordable plumber. Well, once again, affordable to you is different than affordable to me. And when
Hmm.
you're looking in some of these neighborhoods, one neighborhood to another can have also a very big difference in an understanding of what affordable is. So it makes sense to kind of shop around. So I'm glad that you said, let me look beyond just the first name given to me.
Well, and I also, um, had an estimate in my back pocket of what it was a year ago. So when people came in and started to try to give me astronomical prices, I used some negotiation tactics to talk them down on the price. Actually, I didn't even have to talk them down. They talked themselves down.
Yeah. How did you have prices from the previous year?
Well, because when I bought the house, like I said, I got all those quotes.
Gotcha. Oh, so then you would delay the time that you were doing that. So you had the
Right. So when
quotes
the
for
water
when you
heater
originally were
died.
looking at the house
Mm-hmm.
with the due diligence. You already had some quotes then. So when you actually went to do the work, now you got new estimates, and then you were able to say, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. Actually, this was what I was quoted before, and then you got the better price.
And I know with supply chain issues and everything that things were going to go up, but I have a reasonable understanding of how much they should have gone up.
Right. And like right now, when I've been getting some estimates for the most recent duplex I bought, I actually have contractors even writing like, this estimate is valid for 2 weeks, for 10 days,
Oh, yeah.
because they know how much things are going to change and so rapidly that they're automatically like building that into their price structure, saying, hey, this estimate, you have to give us the deposit, the down payment by within X amount of days. Otherwise, we'll have to renegotiate the price.
But I don't
So
know about by you. By me, that's even negotiable. You just have to ask for it. That's what I've
every
learned. Just ask for
everything is
everything you want. Can they
right.
say? No?
Correct.
I
Here in New
literally was
York, though,
like,
the
well,
answer
the
is usually
next,
no.
I'm like, well, the next plumber is going to get here in about 30 minutes. And he had a water heater in his truck and didn't want to leave. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you can stay on the street if you want. I'm just going to get this other quote. And he really didn't want to leave. So I walk inside actually to call and negotiate things about picking up the kids
Mhm.
because I had to leave and go do that. And I don't know what he thought I was doing, but when I came back out, he had met my price.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. Okay,
He's
but
like, if
I
you
like
call
the
and
idea of
cancel
being
that other
persistent.
plumber, I'll give it to you. I said, okay,
Huh. That's also once
done.
again that's such a funny perception thing that like here you're going in because you have to actually deal with something with your family, and then he's almost thinking that you're making other phone calls that he's going to lose that business. So that's great that
Right,
he really
right.
wanted that business, and he got it and did a great job. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reputable company around here, but again, one of the ones with the higher type prices. And I actually even got a bigger water heater for the price because every time he showed me things, I'm like, that just looks like too much.
Really?
And he just
Okay.
kept talking himself down. I'm like, all right, if you want to give me the bigger water heater for the lower price that I asked you, even lower than the lower water heater price, let's do it today.
Yep, I'll take it.
I'll take it
Smart.
and
So
I'll pay
since
cash. Let's
then,
go.
since that single family in 2020, have you purchased other property?
Yeah, I purchased another one about 6 months later. Also in that window. So it was a really good time for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, same criteria. This one's 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath,
Mhm.
on a slab in, I don't know if you'd call it like a B neighborhood, but decent school district. This one's in a different
Okay.
town, but our area is kind of sprawling. So this is more out in the sprawl, a
Okay.
little farther from my house, but still drivable in a half hour. So
Okay. That's great that you keep them kind of together so that way it's easy access that you'll be able to get over to your rentals.
yeah, and I figure, that the area is continuing to grow. So I'm looking again now that I sold the condo. I'd like to do a 1031 with that.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm looking again, but I'm also thinking if I ever move and have to get a property manager, it's nice if they're co-located, so I only need one property manager.
Right. That is really smart to think about. It is nice when you find a good area to be able to invest in to keep properties kind of grouped together rather than saying, okay, I'm going to have one in New Jersey, one in Iowa, and one in South Carolina. If you can kind of keep them grouped together, then you're right. You can use the same plumber, the same electrician to cover those properties. And then also, if you move to a
Mm-hmm.
property manager, you're then only dealing with one person. So it's the idea of really keeping your team to a minimum. So that way it's hard to, have lightning strike twice and find a great contractor, right? But if you could find that one great contractor and they can work on multiple properties of yours, there is a great benefit to that.
Yeah, so when I had a roof issue on the second property, called up the guys who did my roof the first time, and they knew me, so they got it done. I know
Mhm.
there's a backlog in contractors, but I felt like he wanted to be responsive with me because he'd worked with me before. So we're just kind of building that relationship.
Good, good. So then did for that second property, same thing. You still, it sounds like you needed to do some work on it, but not a ton, right?
Oh, well. So that one had been a rental for a very long time. The person who owned it died.
Mhm.
It was an estate sales. So the people who lived in it kept various interesting types of animals inside. It smelled. There was a hole in the ceiling.
Oh my
The
God.
roof had caved in, but
Hmm.
the people who lived there had, I guess, worked for a roofing company. So they put a new roof on, but didn't fix the ceiling. They were living with a hole in the ceiling.
Fix the roof,
It
but
was
left the
not
hole
in
in the
good shape.
ceiling.
Yes, it was not in good shape. Um, so that was a bit more work, and it actually worked out for me because we were ending a very stressful project at work, and I had been an independent contractor running my own LLC and doing it that
Mhm.
way. And then the company wanted to hire me as an employee. So I was kind of in that in between space. So I had
Right.
about 3 weeks. It was perfect timing to handle this. I ripped out the carpets. I installed a lot of that flooring myself. I had a painter who came and mudded the walls and did all the painting and did all the cabinet painting. And he's like a do everything kind of guy. He's great. And we knew
Hmm.
him because he worked on our house for us. Um, but that was the majority of it. Like we pretty much, and I put new countertops. So it was aesthetic things. It wasn't anything
Gotcha.
structural, but there
Except for
was
that
a
whole
lot. And
hole
a
in the
water heater
ceiling.
and a hole in the ceiling. Yeah, my God, fix that.
So I
We
keep
went on
hearing,
vacation.
yeah,
We let the guy, he was in the house for a week and a half. We went on vacation and came back and it was done.
nice. That's a great way to do it. So it's interesting that you had a really good mix of like work that you personally kind of did versus then what you were able to hire out for, right? You said that you went and you actually were able to do most of the floor by yourself.
Yeah. And my husband is a great, you know, do everything person. So he was able to put in the new dishwasher and he's got all the power tools that we need that he doesn't get to use very often.
Yeah.
So, I've got some pictures of us both on conference calls from work. I'm putting in flooring. He's installing a dishwasher. We're both on headsets.
That's great. But way to make it work. So is that was that like how you made things kind of balance between a 9 to 5 job and then also having your rental properties?
Yes, I actually work part-time, but he's full-time and I only needed him for certain things. Once we got set up and doing the flooring, I mean, that just takes a long time with one person doing it, but I didn't have anything else to do at the time. So I was listening to podcasts and, the tax strategy books on tape and installing floors and lifting the unit and showing the unit and doing all those things. I don't ever expect to be in the position to be able to dedicate that much time to something like that again, but it was really good
Right.
timing because I'm like, why would I
Perfect.
hire someone if I'm sitting at home?
Right. You could do it yourself. Now, how did you get the skills or learn how to install that floor?
I don't know. You just have to try and do it. And, I was talking about this with my husband. He's like, I don't actually know how to do these things. I just give it a try and figure it out. We're
Huh?
both, engineering major type people. So we
Right.
obviously can do hands-on things. And I was always big into not necessarily building, but like crafting a lot of stuff like that, which I think applies to decorating or putting things together with your hands. And my husband is,
Hmm.
the same way. He had an internship in college rewiring dishwashers to be commercial grade. So, like, all right, you handle that piece. But we called in professionals too for things like installing the new water heater in that house, of course,
Hmm.
and a couple plumbing issues. There was something with the hose they had to get in the wall for. But we also, budgeted it out. What do we absolutely need to hire someone for? What
Hmm.
can we figure out ourselves? Anything that's dangerous, I'm hiring a professional for, that kind of stuff.
Right. Like it's a great idea to sit down and not only, as you had mentioned before, to kind of build out that timeline and say, okay, these are the projects I'm going to take care of at these points. These are the prices these things are going to be able to take me. But then also look at it and say, what are things that you could possibly do yourself versus what you have to hire out? I totally agree with you. Anything that deals with like electric plumbing is usually something that I'm like, nope, I'm not going to touch that. Let's leave
Hmm.
that to the professional. Oddly enough, my husband's actually like either taking classes in that. We have an couple electricians actually in the family. So that's actually been really helpful that
That's
my
nice.
husband can now troubleshoot those electric and water issues, which is really nice. Um, but you really have to understand what your skill set is, what you're willing to learn, and where kind of that line is that you say, no, this is actually something that I'm going to have to hire a professional for. So it sounds like you two have really come up with a great balance for what that looks like.
And actually, my HVAC technician gave me a recommendation. He said that the local community college offers some introductory courses and things like HVAC and plumbing. And he
Mhm.
recommended I take those, which I still haven't done yet, but I'm interested in doing it. It'd be low cost way to be able to troubleshoot those things.
Right. Community colleges, they do the same in my area, that you can learn them, or community centers. The other place that just started their classes back up is actually Home Depot. Home Depot teaches certain classes on either home maintenance or appliance repair, those types of things.
Hmm.
And now, quote unquote, post pandemic here, they Home Depot actually also started up their classes. And mine locally even has a class that's focused for women. Just saying.
Nice.
Yeah, nice little bonus. So now you have these two properties down there. Those we're happier with, but you also just mentioned that you closed on that condo in DC. So you mentioned that you were looking for something bigger and better now. Can you share a little bit about what you're planning on doing next?
Oh God, we've been all over the place. So I know, you don't want to have houses in a million places, but I have considered buying a house in New Jersey so I can write
Mhm.
off trips when I go home to visit family and friends. Um, However, where I'm from is kind of the epicenter of where Sandy hit, so there would be different criteria, and it's biting off a little bit more with that kind of thing. I've also been looking locally in these areas with my agent again, um, and then we've also thought about doing a lake property as a short-term rental, which would be something we could potentially use for a hurricane evacuation shelter for ourselves, or a long weekend family type vacation spot. Um,
Right.
for it to be considered a rental, you can't use it for personal use more than 2 weeks in the year, I believe. If you're working on the house, that's a different story. You would have to show receipts, which we're always working on things, so that could work for us.
Yes,
But that's
absolutely.
another thing we're toying around with. But like I said, I just closed on Monday. I have 45 days to identify a property, and things are sitting in the market a little longer now, so that is helpful for me.
Hmm. I think
So
I
yeah,
think that might be a trend that we're going to see. So let's see
right. But I
how
don't want
that
to
kind of
overpay either. So
right.
I had to find a balance somewhere. But I think I've gotten rid of the New Jersey idea for now. I think it's going to be between the lake property, um, or the same thing I've been buying around here.
Good. Well, you are definitely going to have to come back on, share with us what you ended up doing next, and definitely make sure
Okay.
to post in Lady Landlords what you ended up deciding to do. I'm sure we would all love to see pictures of the next property you purchase.
Well, and more what they might be interested in is all the 800,000 questions I sent to the exchange company, to the lawyer, to try to understand what all, I have to do and what can I do. And also because the condo is in my name only, we're going to buy the
Right.
new property in both of our names. So I have to figure that piece out. Um, because it has
Okay.
to be the same taxpayer technically, to follow all the rules and make it,
Are you doing a
you know,
1031 exchange?
yeah,
Gotcha. So since the 1031 exchange, you bought the previous property that you now just sold was your name, right? That was your condo, you said. And now since you're
yeah,
buying this new property in both of your names, that now is being a fun change between the two. Okay.
right.
So
So I
are
might
you
need to buy
working?
it and do a quick claim deed or do an LLC and add him as a member later. I think that's what the lawyer recommend. I just have to get back with him and figure out the legal way to do that.
Always a good place to start.
Right.
So perfect. And are you working with a 1031 intermediary to help oversee that
Yes.
exchange? Okay.
Yes. I just looked up, what are the lists of the top exchange companies, and this one's called First American Exchange. I don't know if I'm allowed to give names on here, but they've been very responsive. I talked to them on the phone a couple times, and when I did the closing on the condo, I guess it's the was it the closing attorney or the title agents? They just handled everything. I gave them the info to the exchange people,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of emails going back and forth, but everybody was great and worked really well together, and it thankfully wasn't very stressful for me.
Good, good. I love the fact that you really are out there using your resources to be able to figure out kind of next steps and really going through that. And that's definitely a testament to the portfolio that you've grown over these past few years. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Holly, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and taking your time out to be here and to share your story. Any last words or piece of advice for our lady landlords that are listening to your story today?
I guess I would say I've really found the Lady Landlords group helpful for tenant issues and just understanding the different situations that people go through and how they handled it, and reading through how other people have handled it, and then looking up on my own and planning out how I would handle it, because you never know what's going to come your way. And it's nice to hear from other people who have been there and what worked.
Right. That's actually one of my favorite things about lady landlords too, is just to see, and I am still shocked that every day there are new situations coming up
Hmm.
and different things that I just sit there and I'm like, really? I would have never guessed that that would have happened, but here we are.
And
So I'm
different
happy that
states
that's been
have
helpful.
different laws.
Exactly.
So then I'm like, oh, I guess I better look up my state law on this because I don't know what it is.
Right. A lot of things do come back to also just state or local restrictions, liabilities, laws, all those types of things. But it's also just interesting for a lot of those kind of on the fence type things to see what way people lean on what they would have done in the situation. So I'm happy that that's something that's been really helpful for you.
And it gives me the confidence to handle it the right way, I think.
Perfect. That's great. I'm really happy to hear that. That was really my intention and my goal with the group. So
Nice.
I'm happy to hear that it's working. So thank you, Holly.
Works for me so far.
Then to me, my job is done. So fantastic. Well, Holly, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing pictures of your next property. Let us know how that ends up working out so we can all celebrate you in the group. But thank you very much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Of course. Ladies, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button or like, whether you are listening to our podcast or if you are watching us on the YouTube channel, so you do not miss the next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. We release new episodes every single Tuesday. Thank you and see you then.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate journey, visit lady-landlords.com/roadmap to book a one-on-one workshop with me. I'll help you determine your next best strategy. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter for exclusive tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a lady landlord today.